You're listening to the SKYLIT Books podcast. We're an independent, general interest bookstore putting great reads in the hands of people in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles. Hosted by resident Skylighters, we're here to bring you new and exciting author conversations, group reads, and bookseller chats. Happy listening. Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome back to the SKYLIT Books podcast. My name is Nat, and I'm so excited to welcome our guest today, Sonora Reyes, to talk about their new YA book, The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. Sonora Reyes is a queer second-generation immigrant who attended a Catholic high school. They write fiction full of queer and Latinx characters in a variety of genres. Sonora is also the creator and host of #QPOC Chat, a monthly community-building Twitter chat for queer writers of color. They currently live in Arizona in a multi-generational family home with a small pack of dogs who run the place. You can visit them online at www.sonorareyes.com. Thanks so much for being here, Sonora.
Thank you so much for having me.
Do you want to start off by reading us a little something to introduce us to Yami and her world here?
Okay, so chapter 1 is Thou Shalt Not Trust a Two-Faced Bitch. 7 years of bad luck can slurp my ass. It's been way too long since I punched something, and that vanity had it coming. Stupid mirror. Stupid Yami. Whatever. Mirrors are overrated, and punching them is underrated. I've never liked looking at myself anyway. Not because I don't think I'm cute. I mean, I am cute, objectively, but that's beside the point. I like this new reflection better. It's cracked enough that I'm hardly recognizable, splintered in all the right places. I did that, with my fist. Who says I'm not tough? I don't run from a fight, as long as it's with an inanimate object. I didn't punch the mirror hard enough to shatter it, but the pulsing in my knuckles tells me I hit it pretty hard. My chest swells at the accomplishment, and so does my hand. Shit, that's a lot of blood. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have done that. My hand is shaking and starting to drip, but I'm stuck. All I can think about is Bianca and the other thing I really shouldn't have done. Who quits their job just to avoid the possibility of running into an ex? Not even an extraordinarily two-faced bitch, an ex-best friend who I'm ashamed to have ever had feelings for. Bianca's never been good at keeping secrets, so I don't know why I thought she'd keep this one to herself. It's my own fault for trusting her. Last time I saw her was when she outed me at the end of sophomore year. I was happy to never see her again, but today she just had to walk right into the coffee shop I worked at. She has some nerve trying to confront me at work. It's not like I could defend myself. I never could against her. Because of her, I couldn't even make it a couple weeks into my summer job. So you're running away to Catholic school now? Are you that desperate to avoid me? Yes, desperate enough to quit my job too. Anything to keep from seeing her. Anything. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's like the first page or two.
So I don't even know where to start because there's just something so joyful about reading a book that you feel so seen in reading.
I'm so glad.
It brought me so much joy, and I have told so many people about it. Everyone that I went to Catholic high school with, like, you have to read this book. So I'd love to hear just a little bit about like where Yami's story like came from when this idea became a book. And I'm sure that some people have written like stories in this world before, but this is the first one I've read. And so just the two ideas coming together of queerness and like real specifically Catholic religious high school, where like when you decided I want to write this story and I'm ready to write it.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of a funny story because I did not decide I was ready to write it. I actually just um up until like 2018. So this was the first book I ever wrote. I wrote it in NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month of 2018. And I wasn't going to write this book. I was going to write a fantasy. Because all of my ideas were like fantasy or sci-fi, but I decided to participate in National Novel Writing Month on like October 20th. And I didn't have an outline. I didn't have any research done. I didn't have anything. And I was like, I don't have time to build a world. I don't have time to make a magic system or do any research. So I have to write about something that I like intimately know, right? Um,
Yeah.
so I thought I'll do something like, quote, easy, which it ended up not being easy at all. But that was my mindset going in. I was like, this will be so easy because I know this experience. I won't have to research. And then I ended up having to like therapize myself writing the book.
Yeah, like you're like this. I know this. It won't be hard, and then trauma rains down on you.
Yeah, I was processing stuff I didn't even know I had to process. I was like, just it was really cathartic though, like writing this book. So it was a
Yeah,
good thing. But it definitely wasn't something that was planned. It just kind of happened because I was like, I should write something that I know.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then this group of friends is one, so much fun, like a ridiculous amount of fun. There are so many times, not just with Yami and her group of friends, which includes Bo and David and Amber, and Hunter, I guess, a little
Yeah.
bit. Our resident straight jock.
Yeah.
Um, and then but also her brother Caesar, and there are so many times throughout this book that I was laughing out loud when like their antics, like there's so much like you said, as someone who is no longer in high school, having to kind of relive some of the most horrible like points of high school, um but also knowing that that is a place where you made a lot of friends and you had a lot of like fun
Yeah.
and beautiful relationships, and specifically Yami's relationship with Bo and a lot of the like the antics and like fun things that they do together.
Yeah.
Um, what like could you talk a little bit about just kind of their relationship and how you built it? Because it is, I won't say it's like a will they won't they. It's just a little bit. There's antics that I don't want to spoil for anyone,
Mhm.
because they're so fun as you like go through the story. But their relationship is so sweet and like very coming of age and trying to figure yourself out and protect yourself, not only as a queer person but as a queer person of color, feeling even more vulnerable to just kind of everyone's opinion, and like
Yeah.
Yami has a huge sense of self-preservation.
Yeah. So I think basically in my mind when I was doing this, I feel like Yami's growth is really it's not centered around Bo, but Bo really is like an instrument for it, if that makes sense. Like because
Yeah,
Yami Bo is a way that I could she was something that I could use to force Yami to kind of just grow. And I guess how that works is because in the beginning, Yami is so afraid of being like Bo, but she at the same time, because Bo is so unapologetic and unafraid and so like out and open and proud. And Yami is obviously very jealous of that and very like envious, but at the same time, she's afraid of that and she doesn't want that for herself at, in the beginning. And so as she kind of grows and learns more about herself and comes into herself more, she's less and less afraid of it. And which kind of allows her to be closer and closer to Bo as she's getting over that fear, you know?
and then there's also this kind of beautiful parallel where like Yami is sort of using Bo for that growth, but Bo is also using Yami for a certain kind of growth. With
Hmm.
so Bo is Asian American and adopted. She has two white parents, and her parents have kind of tried to like surround her with her culture so that she feels at home and she feels seen. Um, and Bo doesn't want to feel ungrateful, but is kind of bothered by that in a certain way, but doesn't want to say
Yeah.
anything about it. And so the incident of that is that Bo and her family take Yami to the Baile Folklorico, and she sees her like in steeped in her culture and appreciating her culture, and like that moment gives Bo the bravery and and also the jealousy moment of like, you have a culture and you know what it is and you get to experience it and live it every day, and I
Mhm.
don't know what mine is. And there's a very beautiful moment towards the end of the book where Bo kind of has a conversation with her parents, and it's sort of like a mirror of the queer conversation too, which was a beautiful part of the book that I wasn't expecting to be there.
Mhm.
And it was so like, it was just very thoughtful. And I loved that Bo got to kind of have a moment of bravery too.
Yeah, they definitely like learn from each other and like help each other grow. So it's not just like Yami using Bo to grow. It's like they
Yeah.
both kind of like learn from each other and they're like each other's foils in a way. Yeah, like I kind of did that by accident. Like that wasn't in the plan, but it just kind of happened and I'm really like glad that it came through.
No, it did. And it was such like I said, it was a place that like, because a lot of, you could say, like, a lot of YA books and even like coming out books, which this isn't really that, like, it's not a, it can't be put into a category, but it has those elements, and a lot of times we can feel like we're seeing the same like stories over
Mhm.
and over again, and there were so many parts of this book that I just like wasn't expecting. um
Nice.
and and we're so like joyful, and like made me appreciate so much about this story, including, and I don't know how we're going to talk about Caesar without ruining one of the main, like, my jaw was on the floor during that first kind of like story reveal, if we want to call it that. But uh I don't want to talk about it too much because I want people to like enjoy the story as it unfolds. But
Uh,
Caesar and Yami's relationship is so, I have a younger brother too, so I think that also just hit me real hard.
oh,
um but in a similar dynamic, which is, I'd love to like talk about, I don't know if you have any siblings or younger siblings,
yeah,
but like a younger, for an older sister, a younger brother kind of being seen as the favorite, and your parents really like, you need to take care of them, you need to make sure they're not getting in trouble, you need to make sure
yeah.
they're okay. And especially for like a teenage girl to feel so much like, not only just pressure from the world around her, but then from your family too, to kind of hold things together.
Mhm.
um there's still, Yami has her like resentments a little bit towards her brother, but not to the point that it really strains their relationship. They have such a kind of beautiful fighting sibling relationship, and I'd love to hear about how you built that in this story.
Yeah, so I love Sasada so much. I feel like he is probably my favorite character. I shouldn't say that because I love all of them, but
he
he
is
is-
he is so great. He's like a little firecracker.
yeah, he's so good and so funny and like I love him so much. And I wanted so it's hard to say stuff without spoiling because
I
this book
know.
originally was going to be very, very different. Originally, Sasada was supposed to be Yami's best friend,
Okay.
brother, like best friend from the old school.
Yeah.
And then as I was writing it, I was like, no, they have to be siblings. Like they have to be. um,
Yeah.
so I made him her brother, and then like the story just completely changed from there. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it kind of happened by accident. It was yeah, he was supposed to, I mean, they were of course supposed to be like just as close, like even if they were just friends. But I think making him her brother just like gave me so much more opportunity for like just like shenanigans.
Yeah. There are so many shenanigans in this book. If you love shenanigans, this is a book for you,
Yes.
100%.
Love the shenanigans. Yeah, so it was actually an accident. I didn't mean to. I set out to make him the best friend, but it changed very, very quickly. Like, I think before I even wrote the book, like, it was like while I was still outlining it, I was like, I don't know if he can be best friends. I think they need to be siblings. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and then I would love to hear about if you have a personal connection, which I'm hoping and thinking maybe you do, to specifically like beadwork and jewelry,
Mhm.
which is what Yami's mom is like does, and is very good at. And then Yami helps her, and she ends up setting up an Etsy store for her as her like
Yeah.
second job. But she makes this beautiful, beautiful like beadwork jewelry, which I want to see. They're so beautifully described, and I wish I could see
Oh.
them. But I'd love to hear like if you have a personal connection with that art too.
So I have family in Mexico who does the beadwork. I've never done it personally. I when I was little, I did. Um, I was too little to like do anything of importance, but I was helping to cut the strings.
Yeah.
So like, I have like memories of it. Because my tia used to do beadwork. I don't know if she still does, but yeah, so it's not like a huge connection because it was a long time ago. I don't really remember super well, but I definitely wanted to. Um, it kind of is another thing that kind of happened by accident of how I put that into the story because in the first draft there was no beadwork. It was just
Hmm.
um, Yami. In the first draft, Yami just got sent to Catholic school with Cesar. And then in this draft, I was like, no, she has to want to go. She has to like convince her mom to let her go and she's going to pay for it herself and she's going to do this. And so the beadwork came as like a way to give her more agency to like
Yeah.
pay for her own way. So she's going to like help her mom with like beadwork and stuff. So that also kind of came, I don't want to say as accident, but it came later
Yeah.
in the story. Yeah.
And
Lots of
then
provisions the story has.
yeah. And then well there's tons of like moving parts, and like I can sort of imagine that because there's a lot of essentially we're in the time where like Yami and Cesar are at Slayton at Catholic school, but there's so much of like so much of the story relies on things that happened before,
Mhm.
um, at their old school, and just in the past. And so I could definitely see that, like, you would start writing something and know that, like, the reason that is happening is because something else happened, and you could change
Mhm.
sort of what the catalyst moment was.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Things
And
definitely
then,
change
yeah,
from the
because there's a
beginning.
lot of room. Yeah, a lot of room for like moving pieces and things like that.
Mhm.
Um, and then I figured we could take just a minute to talk about Bianca.
Uh-huh.
She only deserves a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Uh, but so Bianca is also part of the reason that Yami wants to go to Catholic school, with Cesar, because Bianca was Yami's best friend, and then she outed her at their old school. Um, and so again, part of Yami's like self-preservation is I can't be here anymore because there's no, um like, this space isn't safe for me anymore. And in addition to making her money so that she can go to pay her tuition to go to school, she's also completely like overwhelmed and stressed out about having enough money to support herself if her mom were to find out that she was gay and kick her out.
Mhm.
So she's very kind of overwhelmed with her safety, and that creates a little bit of a rift between her and her mom as well. But did you want Bianca to stay like in the present part of the story too? Was that always kind of like a part of, because she's around and Yami runs into her, tries to go back to her to like maybe reconcile and be friends, and then very quickly realizes that Bianca is not interested in
Yeah.
being her friend and is not a nice person.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that was actually also something that like was in revision. So like
uh-huh.
this book has changed so much just from the first draft. But like in the first draft, Bianca was more of like a ghost like of the past.
Yeah.
And now she's still not like super present, but there are moments when, you know, like you said, Yami goes and tries to make amends, or you know, when they see her at the mall, or you know, so it's just I wanted to add a little bit more of Bianca, like just like a little bit, like a sprinkling, where like you can kind of see that what happened before is still affecting Yami. And then
Hmm.
when you see, I don't want to spoil anything, but it can also show how it's not affecting her anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. How when I feel like that is definitely a part of like Yami's growth too, is she started to um like when she made friends that she knew and understood like wouldn't judge her,
Mhm.
or like would accept her and that she could feel like she could be open with and closer to, like she realized how sort of insufficient her friendship with Bianca was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. um and then uh like we'll talk about it a little bit. You put a beautiful author's note in the beginning of the story, as a content warning for people, about some sensitive subjects that we'll also just like touch on a little bit because it's a part of the story that I want people to explore and find for themselves,
Mhm.
when they read. But there's there's so many stories, and so many people's experiences about coming out to their parents, and I feel like the majority that we hear are like sad stories,
Mhm.
and like those are the ones we focus on most of the time, is trying to make sure that we can be there for kids when their parents kick them out
Yeah.
and if they don't support them. And so we do see that with one of their friends from their old high school,
Mhm.
Jamal, who ends up staying with Yami and Cesar and their mom for a little bit when he gets kicked out. Um, and then Yami also, in a drunken moment, uh, texts her dad, who previous to like the beginning of this story has been deported and is back in Mexico.
Mhm.
And he is kind of her favorite parent, and she idolizes him, and she feels like he is the only one who understands her. Her phone calls with him are like the highlight of her day. He's the background on her phone, and she thinks if I'm going to come out to anyone, it's going to be him because he'll understand and he'll get me.
Mhm.
Um, and that isn't what happens.
Yeah.
And it is it is so like devastating to watch her kind of realize that's what's happening and then decide that she needs to fully like pivot and change her entire like life plan, almost an idea of what's going to happen next. So I'd love to hear kind of how you decided how that story was going to play out in terms of her coming out, and like which parent and how that dynamic was going to play.
Yeah. So I actually don't know if I decided it or if I was just writing and it just like happened.
Yeah.
Because I know that originally the dad didn't play so much of a role in the book, and
Hmm.
now he's like huge.
Yeah,
Um,
he's very important.
yeah, he's very important to her, and um, I think I wanted to show that like coming out doesn't have to be like all sad or all happy, you know? like there's so much nuance and so much like diverse reactions that you get, and it's not all going to be one reaction. And even if you have some people who are not going to understand, it still can be a really like good thing. um and I also want to say, just on the flip side of that, that because the book also talks about how it's okay not to come out, and it's okay to
Mm-hmm.
like just be, you know, you're not living a lie, you're not like being dishonest. It's just what you have to do to survive. And if you know that that's what you need to survive, that's totally fine too. And I think the beautiful thing with Yami's situation is that in her previous school, like she was outed against her will. And so she, by moving schools, gets to have a do-over, and she gets to do it on her own terms. So no matter what reactions she gets, it's on her terms because she's deciding when to come out, and she's deciding that she's ready whenever she comes out to like each individual person that she comes out to, because it's not just a one and done thing.
Yeah.
So I think that she really gets to have like a second chance at that. And I think that's pretty cool.
It is so cool. And it's also like you mentioned, like it's not a one and done thing. And she mentions that at one point. I think she's talking to Cesar and she's like, I'm exhausted. I came out to this person, this person, this person, and that's only like 4 people. And
Yeah.
there's so many more people that I would need to come out to if I was gonna be like out.
Yeah.
Um, and that's so like overwhelming and exhausting. And there's also that beautiful point in the book because this this can be a little bit of a spoiler, but it's okay. Out in the very beginning, Yami frighteningly and like in a reaction moment tells Bo that she's straight. And
Oh yeah.
so so she's lying to
Moment.
Bo. Yeah,
Oh,
in her
sorry, you
panic
cut out
moment.
a little bit.
Oh, um so Yami tells Bo that she's straight in a moment of panic.
Uh-huh.
Um and then she has to keep that lie up in
Yeah.
her journey of self-preservation. And so as you were talking about like not having to come out and it not being something that everyone has to do, and there's nothing wrong with that. She feels so bad, and when she does come out to Bo, she apologizes and says like, aren't you mad at me for lying to you? And she's like, no, like you were taking care of yourself, and that's like, and also I knew.
Yeah. She knew. Yeah. I mean, Yami's not slick. She's not.
And that was also a like a wonderful character trait of hers, that she was always so concerned with like people finding out who she really was, that she was so overwhelmed like with everything she did. Like she was so anxious about all of these things, and Cesar calls her out on it multiple times that like no one is paying that much attention to you. Like
Yeah.
you're not slick. You're not like, no one is always talking about you. People are not always looking at you. Like
Yeah.
you're not as important as you think you are.
Mhm.
And I liked that sort of character trait of hers because it wasn't a like egotistical thing. It was really just when you're so hyper aware of everything that you're doing, you think
Mhm.
that everyone is always watching you, and really no one is paying attention.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And
I sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
I remember when I was younger, I used to I was going to the beach with my mom on vacation, and I remember being like, "Oh, people are gonna be looking at me because, like, like my body or whatever." And she was like, "Sony, nobody cares." And I was like, "Wow, nobody cares." Like, yeah, like brain explosion. Like
Yeah.
I it had never occurred to me that like people just don't care. Like it's like I don't care what other people look like. Why would they care what I look like? You know?
Yeah. That
So
that sense of self-preservation can really just like it creates this sort of like bubble blinder around you where
yeah,
you're
yeah,
just constantly like you feel like there are eyes on you all the time because your eyes are on you all the time.
exactly. Yeah.
And then I'd love to hear we talked a little bit about in the beginning, you said this was like a very cathartic experience. But if there were any things you kind of like either learned or little like discoveries that you made while you were writing, um, or whether it was like if you did any research, even though this was a story that like you knew if you researched anything and you kind of found some things out that you were like, oh, I didn't know that before, I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm. I definitely realized that a lot of the things that I experienced when I was in Catholic school was racism. And I didn't realize it at the time. Like I was totally oblivious to the fact that what I was experiencing was racism.
Yeah.
And I didn't want Yummy to be oblivious to it.
Hmm.
So I talked to some of my sisters and I was like, tell me about like your experience in Catholic school too. Cause like I wanted to compare notes. I only went to Catholic school for 1 year and my older sister went for like all 4 years of high school. And then like, so I wanted to compare notes. I was like, what, like, did you ever experience racism or did you ever experience this or that? And like, I just wanted, because we didn't really talk like that in high school. Like we weren't like in each other's
Yeah.
friend groups or anything. So I just didn't know. And we compared notes and I was like, oh wow. So like people were racist and like I didn't even notice. Cause like the whole thing, like I know, okay, so Cesar has this twin, right? David, that everyone thinks that they look alike when they're not even the same like ethnicity. They're just both brown and short.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like that was me. Like I had a twin in high school who was like it was just we both were like brown and had big boobs and that was it and like we didn't look anything alike at all but she was my twin and everyone thought that we were related and people even thought that she was
Yeah.
related to my sisters because I was related to them and so like it was ridiculous but like I didn't even realize at the time that like oh people are maybe a little racist about this but like I just embraced it I was like this is my twin yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah. It's and also mentioning the like when they end up going to an anti-prom at the end and Yami mentioned she's like, yeah, I think every like non-white person is at this prom right now, all 23 of us.
Yeah, mhm. Yep, because there's not that many. At least when I
No.
went, there wasn't that many, and, like, when I went, even, like, a lot of the people that weren't white were, like, lighter skinned.
Hmm.
There were, like, some darker skinned people, but for the most part, it was, like, lighter skinned people of color when I went.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were, like, I
And
think a grand
then
total of, like, 2 Black people, and then, like, me and, like, one other, like, brown Latina, and then the rest of the Latinas were, like, lighter, like, white. So,
yeah,
yeah, it was a time.
it was definitely a time. And well, and also like my Catholic high school was not co-ed. It was all girls.
Oh, yeah.
So it was also a time.
Yeah, I bet. Oh my gosh. That sounds
um
like a time.
yeah, a time for sure. And then I'd love to hear kind of what your hope for this book is like once it's out in the world and people can pick it up and read it and like carry it around and share it with their friends. Like what do you hope the like this book does once it gets out there?
Oh, I really want it to reach people who need it. I want people to feel seen by it. And, obviously I wouldn't be mad about like any like, if it were to like hit a list or something like that, that's great. But like I think what I really want is for it to be seen by as many people as need it. And I think that is also why like, I chose this title and like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like very like gay. Like you
It's
can,
super gay.
like if you need something like that, you can find it.
Yeah.
So I just hope that it's a very like accessible gay read for people who want something like that. Because I know that not everybody can read stuff that's like very like openly gay.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's definitely like plenty of like covertly gay books out there, and those are great. But I think sometimes you just want to find what you're looking for exactly, and like know that like this is gonna be this.
Yeah.
So I hope that that works out for people.
I think it definitely will, and it's also our listeners obviously can't see, but they will very soon. It is a beautiful cover. The cover is
Oh,
so gorgeous.
I forget they can't
Actually,
see.
I know.
Amazing.
Could you tell us about who did the art? It's a port for
Yes.
our listeners. It's a portrait of Yami, with some roses on it, and the cover is bright yellow, and it's so beautiful.
Yes, I love it so much. So Beth Hernandez did the art, and Jesse Gang did the design. I think they both did an amazing job. I love it so much.
I know it is. It really is like it's a. I'm gonna say it's a perfect cover. It really is.
Oh, I think so too.
I know it is so. It is so good. And then I always love to ask people when we're closing up if there is any other work or writing or art or anything that is bringing you joy right now or filling you up or anyone else's work that you'd like to uplift.
Yes. So like stuff I'm working on or some other like reading or
Both.
okay.
Yeah.
So I just got done revising my second book, which comes out next year. And I'm really enjoying that one. I can't say too much about it, but it is a like queer revenge, like Me Too kind of revenge book, with an
Ooh.
autistic protagonist. So I'm very excited for that to come out.
Amazing.
Um, yeah, and then what am I reading? Um, I just read for a blurb um Johnny Garzavia's book. It's called Ande Danzante We're Here, and it is really good. It has a non-binary protagonist dating an undocumented love interest, and it is very good. I love it.
Yay. We'll have to keep our eyes out for that one. And so excited to hear that you have something else in the works that we can look forward to.
Yes.
We will definitely keep our eyes and ears out for that. Um, Thank you again so much for taking the time to chat with me. For all of our listeners, my guest today was Sonora Reyes, author of the new book, which will be out when everybody hears this, The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. And you can purchase it at SKYLIT Books or online at skylitbooks.com. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the SKYLIT Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylitbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.